What's going on, everyone? Chrissy with Clutter Reduction Junk Removal. It is currently 2 o'clock in the morning. I cannot sleep. And I've been kind of binging through YouTube. And I've been seeing a lot of this same topic going around about junk removal the last couple of weeks. I've had a lot of people reach out to me through social media. And I even know some people who kind of started up businesses in North Florida and other states that I've been kind of talking to for a couple of months now. And everyone's problems seem to be about the same. So I think there's a lot of hardships that go into junk removal that people don't talk about. All you really hear is, oh, make $1,000 a day just by using a pickup truck. And it's as easy as that. And at the core, yes, junk removal is a lot easier than some other services out there. Structurally, business is pretty easy to set up. It's not really difficult per se until you start getting into like multiple employees, multiple trucks, higher insurance, stuff like that. That's a whole different story. But for startup purposes, like I made a video a week ago, you could do a full business in 10 steps. And like 6 of those steps are regarding like materials and, equipment and stuff like that. At the core, you only need to do like 2 or 3 steps to get your business up and running. It's a pretty simple thing. You don't need any special licensing or permits or anything like that. You literally just need equipment, something to put stuff in, and the ability to move things. It's as easy as that. But there are some things that go into it that I think a lot of people either underestimate or misunderstand. And I want to go ahead and point out some of the ones that I've noticed myself and through other people, and then maybe a couple of ways to kind of help overcome that in my experience. I'm not going to speak on behalf of other people. So, starting off the list, probably the number one thing I hear about is the trouble of moving items when you don't have experience. If you really think about it, being a mover and doing junk removal, same job. The only difference is as a mover, your job is to move something from point A to point B with the goal of causing no damage to the piece being moved or to the surroundings it is being moved through. In junk removal, you are removing something from point A. After that, it doesn't really matter what the heck happens to it. Your goal is to cause no damage to the surroundings, but whatever happens to the piece itself doesn't really matter as much. So it's definitely a step below moving, but you're still doing the same core concepts and maneuvering of having to relocate a piece. Whether you're carrying it, you're using a dolly, or you have multiple people and you're having to angle something to a tight space, maybe a tight elevator, you're having to go down flight of stairs. It's a heavy piece, it's awkward, it's bulky. Whatever it is, you're still doing the same maneuvering and techniques. The only difference is it's not as much of a careful situation. So I think a lot of people think, oh, removing junk, that's easy. A couple of bags here and there, some boxes of clutter and trash, a couple of chairs, maybe a couch here and there, a mattress, easy stuff. But when you start running into those bigger, bulkier items that even movers hate to move, and they have to, they're frustrated the whole time and they hate their lives as they're bringing down a 600-pound arm wire through a spiral staircase on the 3rd flight of a townhouse because screw the person who wanted to put it up there. You still have to face those same burdens. It's just you don't have to be as careful with the piece itself. But a lot of people, I think, just go into this assuming it's going to be easy, not realizing they still have to do the same stuff as a mover does. So a mover gets trained to do their job. And I don't think a mover is necessarily a good mover until at least 6 to 9 months within their job, depending on where they work. At least you could have a really good team around you and be really good. So if you're just getting into junk removal and you're thinking, oh, I've just got to carry out some boxes, easy, done. Anyone can use a dolly. You'd be surprised how many movers I've worked with that just terrible. So some ways to overcome that: check out visuals. Go on Google, say how to move so-and-so, and think of all your common items. Go on YouTube, look at visuals. Practice with stuff in your own house. Go look for crap people throw out on the side of the road. Go take it from their curb and sit there and play around with their dolly. I don't know, to figure it out. You can put a post on Craigslist or Facebook asking local movers to help train you and just pay them hourly. Say, hey, can you guys show me how to move, certain items, and I'll pay you 30, 40, 50, 60 bucks an hour. If it means you can get your job done now, that's money well spent. So that's what I would recommend with that hardship. The next thing is help. A lot of people can't do this stuff themselves. They either don't have experience, they don't have the manpower, or they don't have the strength or the knowledge. So they rely on the second person to alleviate all of those difficult situations. But finding help is hard to come by. Either A, nobody wants to work, B, they don't want to work for the amount of money you're going to pay them, which isn't always your fault, it's just the cost of doing business. Or C, maybe you can't afford employees in general because of insurance, so you don't really know what else to do. I personally use subcontractors and I do 1099s for them, and I try to find movers or people who have moving experience. I'm not going to hire some random kid off the street that's coming fresh off of retail who's never used a dolly in his life, and I'm not going to bring him on and say, okay, cool, help me go bring out this, full clean out of a third story apartment. Like, it's just not going to be worth it for me, and there's probably a lot too much that can happen. So I think running into employees is a hard thing, and it kind of creates a circle of going back to that first thing, which is you're moving without experience and you're going to have a lot harder time doing so. The third thing is it's hard work, or at least it can be, right? People often don't realize that moving down a lot of big heavy pieces over the course of a day wears you out. You're going to get tired, especially if you're doing it every single day. If you get a debris job, I don't know how many of you have sat there and picked up a bag of tile and moved like 20, 50, 100 bags of it to your truck, but your back's going to be hurting. I don't care how careful you are picking stuff up. Your back is going to be hurting. You're going to be tired as hell, and it's going to feel like a never-ending process. Now imagine you do that multiple times a day. Like, if you work in construction, you're probably used to it. If you work in roofing, you're probably used to it. If you're a contractor, those are things that like you're used to doing it, but don't lie and tell me that you don't get tired every day. I used to kill myself as a mover every single day. Work 10, 15, 18-hour days, moving entire household stuff from point A to point B. Like, you wear yourself out. And I think a lot of people don't realize that not all your jobs are going to be difficult. Some of them might take 5 minutes easy. You pay $200. Some of them might be really difficult and it takes you 3, 4, 5 hours, and you're having to haul around collectively 3,000-4,000 pounds worth of stuff. Like, it adds up and you're gonna get tired. So don't underestimate the fact that junk removal is easy because you're not having to use as much effort as maybe a mover would, but you're still gonna be putting in the work. The next thing is time, especially if you're a business owner. I feel like time just disappears, especially when you're busy. Being busy is fantastic, don't get me wrong. You're a lot less stressed when you're busy, in my opinion. But when you're the business owner, you're having to run operations, you're dealing with clients, you're running the jobs unless you're off the truck, you're doing your marketing, you're doing your background stuff, doing your social media, you're doing your website updates, you're networking with other people. That's a lot of stuff to do on your own. So until you're able to hire out managers or hire out employees so you can get off the truck, you're going to be using a lot of time every single day. It's like that saying, like, when you have a business, you're technically working 24/7, and you very well could be. Now, you can obviously adjust your schedule and adjust your payload and only say, I'm only going to put in this amount of work a day. I'm not going to go overboard with it. Some people go super crazy with it. I'm one of those people that, like, I'll put in a few hours here and there, but I'm not going to go, like, all day, all night. So, but just be, like, weary that time can definitely get away from you and it can feel like you're overwhelmed all the time. Next up is marketing and social media. In my opinion, if you don't have a background in marketing or you're not super familiar and tech savvy when it comes to social media, you're probably going to have a little bit of a hard time. Marketing, for me, I hate marketing. I would rather do anything else but marketing. I hate having to go place to place, talk to people I don't want to be talking to just to try to promote my business and then try to do it in a way where I'm having to stand out on top of like places like 1-800 Got Junk and College Hunks and Junking and the other 75 places in my community. Like, I need to be able to stand out above them and do that on a daily basis and just constantly be marketing, because there's so much competition around you that you just have to be creative and pull out all these stops and be the perfect version of yourself all the time. It's exhausting. And, with social media, it's like you always have to be on top of that stuff. Like, you always need to be adjusting your keywords. You need to be pushing for SEO. You need to be, putting out content that's going to be engaging. And you need to make sure that you're, always on top of your website and your keywords. And like everything just needs to always be moving all the time. And that can be very well overwhelming itself. So I definitely find it helpful to try to find either a third party resource to take care of that for you if you can afford it, normally not free, or look up, go on YouTube or something and type in, how to better manage my social media for business. And then try to learn some tips, maybe create like a schedule where you can, spend 6 hours on a Sunday and set up your whole next month of social media content posting. So that way you can put it almost on like a auto generated situation where it'll automatically post. You're just adjusting the pictures. The next thing is something I think people don't think about even in business until it happens, and that is legal situations. So you get into a car accident, or somebody steals your trailer, or one of your guys get hurt on the job, or somebody tries suing you, or somebody doesn't want to pay you. There's a lot of situations that pop up that you don't think about. Even there, like everyone hopes nothing ever happens, but are you prepared when it does? Do you know who to talk to? Do you know how to handle that situation? Can you afford that situation? That's a lot of stress that people don't think about. You think, oh, I'm just going to go get a trailer and it's going to be registered. It's going to be under my insurance personally. And you're going to be filling it up to the brim and taking it to the dump and making all this money as a side hustle. And that's great. But if something falls off that trailer and hits the car and they crash and they die, depending on your state, you're going to have a really big problem on your hands, and there's a good chance your personal insurance is not going to cover that. So you got to be careful about those kind of situations. But just legal situations in general, they're scary, and I think at the end of the day, you just really need to make sure that you're as familiar with it as possible in that situation. I would either do your research on the different possibilities that can occur with your business and then try to at least read up on it so you're kind of familiar in the situation. If you have an insurance agent for your insurances for your business, ask some questions. Whenever you can, ask some questions. Really understand, okay, what is my general liability cover? What is my commercial auto cover? If this happens, what's going to happen for me? So that way, when those things do pop up, you're not just, a duck in the water running around in circles. And then the last thing, and probably the most complicated for any business, is what happens when you have no jobs, right? Your phone's not ringing, you're going days, weeks, with no phone calls, no jobs booking through. What do? People can't afford to live like that unless you started off with a hefty little savings ahead of time. That's a rough situation. I think the longest I've gone without having a job is 11 days. And that was last year in like September. Keep in mind, I've already been in business for like 2 years, but I went like 11 days with nothing, like no phone calls or nothing. And it was like, what the hell is happening? I remember going out and doing so much marketing. Like, it wasn't until I put out like 30 yard signs that like I finally got a call like the next day, and I was like, thank God. But having no jobs is a really rough situation, especially starting off with like as a nobody. Especially if you don't have a website or anything, you're doing this as like just a pure side hustle. At that point, you're relying on things like Craigslist, Facebook, and word of mouth. Like, those are really your only resources. So unless you have a strong connection with people where you're able to get word of mouth, you're going to have a hard time building your business in the beginning. You're either going to need to put a crap ton of money into things like Google ads or Facebook ads, or do a ton of marketing, which again takes a lot of time, and you need to be a good people person. And then on top of that, you need to be able to handle the work when it does come in. There's just a lot that goes into it. But no jobs, I think a lot of people, like, they won't have a lot of work for 2 weeks and they'll just stop and give up. And I'm not saying, like, obviously, if you're in a position where you're already hurting for money, I wouldn't recommend starting a business right off the back. I would try to save up a little bit of money, start it off as a part-time job, do like a side hustle situation. You can be full legit and still do it part-time, but don't quit your day job, as they say, and start a business if you're already hurting for money. Because if you don't have jobs lined up and you're not pulling income in and you have nothing coming in, you're gonna get stressed fast and you're gonna drop off like a fly. So make sure you have either a source of income when you first start off, or at least have a decent savings like ready to go, like an emergency fund, 3 to 6 months or something, just so you're not so stressed and relying on a business that literally is brand new on the, especially if you're in a high populated area with a lot of competition. I have like 214, 218 companies in my county for junk removal. And that's, I looked that up back in January, so who knows now. And of that, I have 52 franchises in my area. So like that's like per city, that's 52 franchises, and they get a lot of business. So having to compete against that plus the other 200 something people, and then you have all the guys that are doing it as a side hustle, they're not even registered as a business. That's a lot of competition to be with, and you really have to build your network and you have to build your word of mouth and your repeat clients. And that's not always easy to do. You need to do really good work. You need to be on top of everything you do. You need to be pushing for your marketing. You need to be handling your time well. You need to be able to handle the hard work. You need to be able to acquire help if you need it, if you can't do stuff on your own. It's a big circle of things that you need to be able to handle. Otherwise, you're going to drop. And I just feel like people don't talk about that stuff as much as all the positives, like, oh, go get a truck for $3,000 and go buy a crappy trailer for $1,000, and all of a sudden your potential was $1,500 a day, 7 days a week. Like, you're gonna make great money. In reality, that's not really a realistic situation. So this is my opinion on the hardships of junk removal. And is it as easy as people say? I think it depends on who you're asking, but I would say it's definitely easier compared to some services out there, but it's not perfect. And no business is perfect, and no business is as easy as cake, but I definitely think it's one of those places where it's already it's a type of service where we're already meant for like convenience and luxury. Like, people don't need junk removal, right? People need to move. And if you don't have anybody to help you, you need to be able to move your stuff somehow. So you're going to hire somebody. Junk removal, like I said, with the moving kind of reference and comparison, it doesn't matter what happens to your stuff. If you live on a third flight of stairs and you need to get rid of all your crap by the next morning and you can't afford to hire somebody, obviously you wouldn't want to slide all your crap down the stairs and then bring it to your next place if you're moving. But if it's junk and you have a dumpster in your community, slide everything down the stairs, drag it to the dumpster, drop it off. It can be done. You're going to make a lot of noise and people aren't going to like you, but it can be done. So, is it a necessity for people? No. In some situations, it's very, very convenient, and the convenience is worth the payment, but it's not a necessity. And people already don't want to pay us to remove junk that they have no value for anymore. I've said it time and time again. That's probably one of the biggest things I come across when it comes to payment is people are like, oh, God, I have to pay $150 to get rid of a couch that I don't want anymore? That's stupid. And it's like, well, you're not just paying for me to get rid of it, you're paying for my whole business to be up and running for that day. But, it's just one of those things. So, that's my opinion about junk removal. Not as easy as people say, maybe not, but it's definitely a doable job. And those are the kind of hardships that I see most often. So, if you can get past those, in my opinion, you will be pretty squared away. A lot of it just comes down to commitment. Can you discipline yourself and commit yourself to, learning how to do the job properly? Can you commit yourself to finding help when you need it? Can you commit yourself to the hard work when that hard work comes? Can you time manage yourself so you don't get overwhelmed? Can you handle the marketing and the social media? And if you're not good at it, find somebody who is. Can you handle yourself in a legal situation if it pops up? If not, can you afford it? Can you get through it without making a stupid decision? And then on top of everything else, if you have no jobs, can you get through that? That's the answer. That's the answer everybody wants to know. Can you get through the difficulties of the business? If you can, great. If not, you got to figure out your next step. That's it for me. I am going to try to go to sleep this time because now it is 2:40. And I will see you guys when I get back from my trip. Hopefully this helps some of you, at least with understanding the business before you hop into it. Like I said, it's one of those things where it's not talked about a lot. And, I'm all about the ups and downs of business, not just pushing out the fun stuff. So hopefully this resonates with some of you, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.